Anybody else who wants to join us?
Okay, so we're gonna get started. So, and hopefully everyone else will join on. Oh, Eileen is coming on. Great.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Eileen.
Good morning. Okay.
Hi, how are you, Hannah Ruth?
Oh, they all saw. Don't ask, but since you asked. But anyway, I'm good.
Thank God.
Always.
Good to see you.
I'm alive. The sun is
Thank
shining.
God.
Arthur?
Okay, just let me know, everybody, that you see the screen that says Rosh Chodesh Society Code to Joy.
I see it. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here gathered.
Good
Thank you for
morning.
joining. Okay. So last class we discussed like what happens if someone has, what if they have a low self-esteem, what kind of negative effects it has on you, and what Judaism says, how to find your true, self-image, and how that could help you lead to an authentic joy, and what true humility really is. And if anyone has anything to share about anything from last class, that they maybe did something or changed something or noticed something to this over this past month, it's a good time to share now. Okay.
Oh, this is an old story.
Okay. So we didn't discuss yet, we touched on it last month, but we didn't discuss is how do you find your mission in life, or your meaning, your purpose in life? And that's what we're going to be focusing on today, how to find your specific niche in life, how to find your mission, what Hashem has sent you down here on earth for. Okay, so we're going to start with text number 1. I'll read it. You can follow along in your book. Okay. It's a story. A wealthy businessman and his coachman arrived in a city one Friday afternoon. The rich man was settled at the best hotel in town, and the coachman went off to his humble lodgings. Both washed and dressed for Shabbat, and then set out for the synagogue for the evening prayers. On his way to Shul, the businessman came across a large wagon that swerved off the road and was stuck in a ditch. Rushing to help a fellow in need, the businessman climbed down into the ditch and began pushing and pulling at the wagon together with its hapless driver. But for all his finesse in handling the most challenging of business deals, when it came to extracting a wagon and a team of horses from a muddy ditch, our businessman was hopelessly out of his depth. After struggling for an hour in the knee-deep mud, he succeeded only in ruining his best suit of Shabbos clothing, amassing a most impressive collection of cuts and bruises, and getting the wagon even more impossibly embedded in the mud. Finally, he dragged his limping body to the synagogue, arriving a scant minute before the start of Shabbos. Meanwhile, the coachman arrived early to the synagogue and sat down to recite a few chapters of Psalms. At the synagogue, he found a group of wandering paupers, and being blessed with the most generous nature, the coachman invited them all to share his Shabbos meal. When the synagogue sexton approached the poor and homeless to arrange meal placements for them with the town's householders, as is customary in Jewish communities, he received the same reply from them all: "Thank you, but I've already been invited for Shabbos." Unfortunately, however, the coachman's budget was hardly equal to his generous heart. It would be most difficult to believe that his dozen guests left his table with more than a shadow of a meal in their hungry stomachs. Thus, the coachman, with his 20 years of experience in pulling wagons out of the mud holes, took it upon himself to feed a small army, while the wealthy businessman, whose Shabbos meal leftovers could easily have fed every hungry man with a 10-mile radius, floundered about in a ditch. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of Lubavitch told the story and explained its lesson. Every soul is entrusted with a mission unique to her alone, and is granted the specific aptitudes, talents, and resources necessary to excel in her ordinary role. One must take care not to become one of those lost souls who wander haplessly through life, trying their hand at every field of endeavor except for what is truly inherently their own. So what was wrong with this story? Anyone? Right? Each person tried doing something that totally did not befit them, and kind of mixed them up and made matters almost worse. By the way, hi Rochelle. Okay, so each one tried doing
Hi.
the mission of the other.
Wow. I guess I didn't catch that.
Huh?
I didn't really catch that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
do you have your book? 'Cause it's all in the book. So if you have your book, it's lesson 3, and that was text 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
if everyone follows along their book, it makes it, huh?
I caught it with the wealthy man trying to get the car out of the wagon out of the ditch because that's not something he knew how to do. Would have done better to go get help
Right.
than what he did.
Right,
And,
and-
may not have been possible, but yeah, I missed it with the other one offering it. That's
The
usually-
coachman, who was like a poor coachman, you know, he wasn't, anyway, he was a coachman. He wasn't like a taxi driver.
Yeah.
And he went and invited all the poor people to his house to eat. But meanwhile, he didn't have a
Enough.
vast, big meal for them. So he's trying to feed hungry people with, you know, his one little chicken. And the coachman's trying to pull the wagon out of the mud, and he doesn't know the first thing about it. So if there's no one else around to do something, and you're trying, and you need to, you know, when you see that there's something has to be done, even though you're not the expert in the field, or you're not good at it at all, you don't know about it, it's better to do something. And we're going to talk a little about that later. But in general, you know, you have to know what has to be done in, you know, what you are good at and what you should be doing. There's actually a little footnote about these two men who, after they passed away, they went up to heaven, and in heaven they said, "Hey, you guys did the wrong thing. Businessman, you should have invited the poor people, and coachman, you should have helped get the wagon out of the mud." So they had to, their souls had to come back down on earth to actually fulfill their mission. Such a little side note. But there's another logical message here to this story, and that is, you don't need to go off to India or read like a million self-help books, or have a whole bunch of life coaches or whatever other types of you know, therapies to try to find out what your mission in life is. Sometimes it's something so obvious. And it has to do with your natural disposition, your innate talents, your resources. There's actually a pasuk, a verse in the Torah that says, the mitzvah that I'm prescribing to you today is not too mysterious or remote from you. It's something very close to you. It's on your lip and in your heart, so that you can keep it. And this is one of the pasuks that the children always, like, you know, say at the 12 Pesukim. It's kikaro ve'lecha hadavar ma'od v'ficha u'v'vavcha la'soso. So your mission, your mitzvah, is something that's close to you. If it's something that's far, maybe that's not what you were meant to do. And we'll discuss it a little more to understand it better. So to explain that a little, I just have this little a part of an article we're going to read about Michal Muchnick. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he is a very, say, famous big Jewish artist. He has a lot of beautiful, not just paintings, but like actual like 3D pieces of art that is in many different places. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it, and then I'm going to watch a little bit of a video of him. As a young adult pursuing an art degree at the Rhode Island School of Design, I got caught up in the culture of the 60s. It was not until I dropped out of school and got introduced to Chabad that things started to change for me. This happened in 1972 when I was 20. You guys see the article, right? I just want to make sure you guys see the same thing that I see.
Yeah.
Okay. At a certain point, after I enrolled in Tiferes Bachram, the Chabad Yeshiva in Morristown, New Jersey, an opportunity came up for me and some of my fellow students to have a private audience with the Rebbe. We prepared by increasing our Torah studies, and we went in one by one. I recalled being very anxious and not knowing what to expect. Once I crossed the threshold into the Rebbe's study, it is hard for me to describe what I felt because it seemed to me like a different reality, and I thought I have to take the spiritual feeling and somehow incorporate it into my art. As I was standing near the entrance to the room, not sure what to do next, the Rebbe said, "Come closer." So I walked right up to the Rebbe's desk and handed him the letter I had written listing my questions. I also put on his desk 3 small samples of my art because I wanted him to advise me what I should do with my artistic talent. I thought that perhaps I should become a scribe as I was good at Hebrew calligraphy. And I believed that if I were to be religious, this was probably a more suitable profession than becoming a painter. But the Rebbe had another idea. He said I should consider doing illuminated marriage contracts, ketubot, which have been the subject of Jewish art for many centuries. And I asked him if I might also illustrate children's books, and the Rebbe approved of that, as long as it didn't interfere with my study schedule at the yeshiva. By this point, I was so excited that he was giving me the green light to express my talent that I actually exclaimed Baruch Hashem out loud 3 times. Okay, and now we're just going to skip to a little video where he says, so he actually went on to become a very good artist, and while he's still like young and working on his art and trying to, you know, make a living out of it, this is what happens.
I got married and I started to do my art. I thought I'll have exhibitions. I was able, at that time, the California Chabad had opened up a number of Chabad houses from San Diego all the way up to Sacramento. And I called all of them. I said, I'm going to make a tour and would you like to do an evening art show? I started with one Chabad house on the trip. By the 3rd exhibition, I had sold almost everything I had. So it was going successfully. I didn't prepare so much. I just didn't, realize. And I was becoming an absolute nervous wreck because people had sent out invitations. People were coming to these events. You can't show up with 2 pieces of artwork for an exhibition. I was literally did not know what to do. And my artwork didn't take 5 minutes to produce. And I'm traveling. Somehow I borrowed pictures from the people that already bought them, and I had to send them back afterwards. And it was just so I could exhibit them and it was a big mess. And but they went very nicely. But by the time I came home, I was like, I needed a doctor. I was really very, very sick from the whole experience. So I asked the Rebbe, this looks like it could be a nice living for me, the Rebbe's bracha and everything, but I'm so anxious, like it's making me sick. Like, what should I do? What should I meditate on? That I shouldn't be so anxious. So the Rebbe said, you should put a siddur, a tefillin, and a chumash at the side of each exhibition, and a pushka. Secondly, the Rebbe said I should give a specific amount of tzedakah, not a lot, before each exhibition. And thirdly, what to meditate on. Now, I was expecting the Rebbe might say, study this course, study this. But the Rebbe answered, meditate on the hashgacha pratis. I did what the Rebbe said so many times. It saved me so many times. One of the things that I was anxious about is being a chassid who's trying to spread Yiddishkeit through his artwork. I mean, I saw others going out, spending time putting tefillin on a Jewish person or teaching him aleph beis. But I would be showing pictures of Yiddishkeit, and I would be going to exhibitions, and I would feel that maybe you wanted something to come out from the experience that was a mitzvah was done because of it, or something like that. I think that for the viewers to come and see in the paintings Yiddishkeit, and to see on the table a siddur, a pushka, it was grounding it and saying, this is not a fantasy, this is a way of life, this is something to be done.
Okay. So today's lesson focuses on identifying our personal mission. So sometimes we have to put an effort for it, but it's not as complex as sometimes we may think. Up over here. Anyone have any questions or comments so far? Okay. Okay, so there was a so first of all, by the way, this Mahal Mushik, this artist, his son is the Chabad rabbi in Oxnard, California. I'm sure he has some of the artwork there in the Chabad house, as well as
I was accidentally on mute. I thought it was very inspirational and very tremendous that he related his personal experience.
Thank you, Aileen.
Yeah.
Okay, so so now we're going to talk about this young man in the early 1900s. His name was Mr. Elliot Zvi Einbinder, and he's actually the father of the Rabbi Morty Einbinder from Tarzana, whoever knows him. And he was born in Russia in a small little town, came to America, and he grew up in the United States. Basically, he went to public school. At that time, there was no Jewish schools, and he grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. And so he would go to public school during the day. He would do like I guess after school Talmud Torah to learn about Judaism. And his family was very strong, had a very strong Jewish connection. They were very religious. And he went on to a yeshiva, and eventually he went into business. And when it was time for him to get married, when he was about 30 years old or so, he decided he wanted to know what should he be doing with his life? Is he doing the right thing? What is his God-given mission? So he wrote to the Rebbe to ask him, I'm getting married now, please guide me. And this is what the Rebbe responded. It's text 2 of your book, and I'll read it out loud. The Rebbe wrote this letter back to him, and we'll discuss it, okay? It goes like this. The story of our lives is a book that requires study. The book ought to be the compass for how we go about life. The story of our life consists of 1, the reason we were created; 2, to whom we were born, so who our parents are; 3, the place of our birth; 4, the time period of our birth; 5, the type of education and guidance we received; 6, the environment in which we grew up; 7, our talents; 8, our inborn emotional disposition; 9, our characteristics and inclinations; and 10, how divine providence guided us until the day we became independent and assumed a position in life. These 10 factors form the narratives of our individual lives and become a book that requires study. These factors are supposed to guide with which pathways we choose and how we behave, whether in interpersonal relationships or our relationship with God. So there's so much insight we can learn from this, from these 10 basic things that help us find our way in life. And we'll go through them, but also if anyone has anything to share, like, sometimes people say, oh, I had the craziest parents, I'll do everything the opposite of what they told me of what they did. Mm-hmm. So that's it's something that's guiding you because of who your parents are. Or, I didn't think I was like my parents, but I see that I do this and I'm more and more like them every day, right? So whatever it is that you do because your parents did that or because your parents didn't do that, either way, it had an effect on you. The place of your birth. Some people, right, they're born somewhere and then they move to another country and they will try to forget that they were ever from there, and they try to, perfect their accent, here in America, wherever it is, or they don't want to remember anything. Maybe that where they were born was a difficult place or whatever it was. But this Mr. Einbinder, he was born in Russia, and there he lived in a little shtetl surrounded by a whole bunch of Jewish people. So the Jewish influence was very, very strong, and that means something to him. That has something to do with what his mission in life is. So just don't turn your back on where you were born. And then the time period of your birth, also very interesting. Don't say, oh, I'm born in the wrong generation, or what is my generation? So the Rebbe actually says that the generation today is different than it was for Jews beforehand. Today's generation is, if you know Aleph, if you know something Jewish, you need to teach Aleph, because the world is such a time now that that we need teachers, that it's so important. So it's not like the olden days where people would sit and study Torah and they would just sit and study Torah and they didn't care about the world around them. Today, people who study Torah have to share that with other people. And not just that, but I actually also, I read about this, that, you know, each generation, there's all the generations, the baby boomer to the, let's see. I just found this interesting article about the characteristic of generations X, Y, and Z. And then it goes on to explain how each generation, you know, how they are with work and how, you know, how they are and the good things and bad things about each generation, even though we think, oh, wow, the generation today, oh, they're terrible, they're this, they're that. But really there are different, you know, different aspects of each generation that are very good and don't say, oh, I'm in the wrong generation, or I hate my generation, or my generation's so-and-so, but you really can, because you're born in this generation, you have this tendency, you can reach the people of your generation the way that other people can't. And then education and guidance. The Rebbe took into account that people's schooling, their degrees, have to do with what they should be doing. So my father actually, he was going to school to be a CPA, and he also was studying in yeshiva. And he, at one point, he asked the Rebbe if he should get his rabbinical degree, smicha. And the Rebbe said, no, not if it not if it will take away from your livelihood. Or I have a friend whose father was one of the innovators of the solar energy. And he started to become religious when he was in college, and he was thinking of like switching, you know, stopping his college education and becoming, you know, just becoming full-time rabbi. And the Rebbe said, no, you'll do much more with a PhD after your name and working in your field and influencing Jewish people that way than if you had the name rabbi in front of your name. So each person, depending on what the Rebbe usually did not discount people's, you know, education and experience and say, oh no, everyone has to become rabbis, or everyone just has to study Torah all day. No, in what you're doing and who you are, so specifically your education, that makes a big difference. Your environment. So this Mr. Einbinder, the letter was written to, he grew up in the USA. The USA is very different than Europe, where people are much more vocal and everything is out there and everything's out in the open. Very different than, you know, the closed Russian or European mindset. So he has to take that in consideration of how he's going to live his life. And then obviously your talents, your natural abilities, your skill, your intelligence, or whatever talent, you know, skill or talent you may have, whether it be athletic, musical, if you're artistic, if you have certain persuasional powers or very good social skills, whatever it is, you take that in consideration of what you can do. So in the when God commanded the Jewish people in the desert to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle, they found people who were expert, you know, experts in different types of, you know, knitting or sewing, whatever it is, to create beautiful things for the Mishkan. So they went and sought out women who had the special skill of being able to spin the goat hair straight from the goat. So they would as they would cut off the goat, they were able to spin it right away and make something out of it. And there was this little baby camel, and since went to his father and said, "Daddy, why do we have such flat feet?" And the dad said, "To help us walk on the sandy desert floor." And the baby said, "Why do we have such funny eyes?" And the dad said, "To protect us from the desert winds, the sand." And the baby says, "Why do we have humps on our backs?" And the dad says, "There's not enough water in the desert, so we store water for these long walks." So then the baby looks at his father and he says, "So what are we doing in the Bronx Zoo?"
Very cute.
So basically, every one of our inborn talents and dispositions and our personality, which are soon going to expound on very much, you know, really helps us decipher what we are going to do in life. And the final, number 10, was divine providence, because someone has to take all their experiences and all their life and everything that they've done and look and use it as a lesson of how they to live. So like there's actually a thing that says you can even learn from a thief how in serving God, like how a thief you know, does things quickly and quietly and doesn't let people know, all these different little things, how, just even from something like a thief, every little experience, we can learn how to live our lives, and how to see how to best live our lives, and how to best benefit other people and help other people. Okay, so if you want, in your, oops, sorry, I did the wrong thing here. Okay. In your book on page 76, there's a little exercise where you yourself could put in, it says parents, birth, location, era of birth. If anyone wants to share something about themselves and one of these circumstances of how they are who they are because of one of these specific ones. Anyone want to share anything? Or you could just write it in yourself in the little exercise, either now or after class. Anyone?
Well, the environment I grew up in was, I was born during World War II. So I'm earlier than even the baby boomers.
Oh, wow.
And so I was affected by what came before World War II, even the Depression. People save things, they reuse things. Life was simpler. We're more people oriented because we didn't have all the technology. And so it affects how I look at life now. And it's I see things that other people don't see, in the sense because of the time period I grew up in. And,
Thank you.
so I live my life in a little different way than like today's generation.
Give an example.
Well, it's right now we have political things going on. Normally I don't pay much attention to politics, but I look at what's going on and dig deeper because I think it's important too. Something I got from my mother, she'd like to keep up on politics, and she's also an intelligent woman, and she I see ahead of time what's going to happen. I mean, I don't mean a prophetic. It's just that I connect the dots, and I say, oh, okay, so I think this is going to happen later on, and usually does. I'm not in a position to do anything about it, but at least it kind of guides me in terms of what to expect, keeps me more stable when things go awry.
What happened?
You okay,
Yeah.
Sophia?
I just lost the picture.
Oh,
What happened?
we see you.
Oh, I
Does
just got it back from the shop. I have no idea what's going on with this
Okay.
stupid.
Hey.
Sorry.
Does anyone
I can hear
have
you.
anything that they did, like that they do in their life, or any job or something they did because of one of these things that they saw that they that affected them? Let's say a parent that had a certain career that they followed or didn't follow, or some other thing like that.
Can you hear me? I'll share. I can't see you. So my parents, my dad was an entrepreneur, so he always took care of us with different jobs and careers, and therefore I think I'm an entrepreneur as well. I've always pretty much worked for myself or with them. It's interesting. It's totally different than working for somebody else. It's one takes the everything that you do is has a I guess an effect on one's future, and it's been interesting. Sometimes it's just challenging. Most of the time it's challenging and yet rewarding as well. I'm not dependent upon, well, I'm dependent upon my clients, I guess, and what's going on politically and in our environment, but it's been very rewarding.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Sylvia. So now we're going to go on to part 2, which is personality and the spheros. Okay, so the spheros are inborn emotional disposition, characteristics, inclinations. I know, like when I was in high school, let's say, or maybe a little after high school, I was always very into these personality books and tests and everything. And I always heard of the sphere up. I never really understood what they really mean, because like I know I heard the Hebrew word and maybe the fancy translation, but not in a practical level. I never really got past, let's say, the first, few. And we're going to do that today. We're actually going to really put it on a practical level, understand what the 10 spheres are. Let's first discuss what I mean when I'm saying the 10 spheres. So the Kabbalah teaches us about Hashem, how he created the world with 10 traits, 10 spheres, which is 10 traits. And the text number 3 from your book, I'm going to read it. It's from the Zohar. Elijah opened this discourse with a prayer. Master of the world, you are one and transcend the Sphirot. You are exalted above all the exalted ones, hidden from all hidden ones. No thought can grasp you whatsoever. You are the one who brought forth 10 garments, which we call the 10 Sphirot, through which to direct concealed words and concealed worlds and revealed words. So in order for Hashem, who is infinite without any form, to be able to create a finite world, he needed to define himself. He had to limit himself. He had to form himself into these 10 spherot, like these 10 channels, which through this, he was able to create the world and interface with humanity. And if we, and just like you have, let's say, 3 base colors, right? Red, yellow, and blue, is that what it is? And from those 3 colors, you create multiple thousands upon thousands of colors. The whole color, the hue of the colors are so vast, but there's 3 basic colors. Or the same with music. You may have 12 basic music notes, but that creates infinite amount of music and song. And so the same with the Sphirot, there's 10 basic Sphirot, like personalities or attributes, but that creates mixing and matching creates so many types of personalities and people, and each one of us, as we know, is unique. So if we would go around the room, let's say, and when we, or our Zoom room over here, and we would say, who are you, or what do you do, right? You might say, I'm a daughter. You might say I'm a mother. You might say, I'm a lawyer. You might say I'm a woman, whatever it is, right? But are you a teacher to your, if you're a daughter, are you a teacher to your parent? No, you're a child to your parent, right? If you are a mother, are you going to be a lawyer to your son? I hope not. When you are in whatever role you are in, you're going to manifest that side of you to play that role. So if you're a lawyer and you have to be in court or whatever it is, you're going to manifest your lawyer side of you and everything that you learned about law, and not gonna start acting like a little your mother's child. Or if you are in class, you're a teacher, let's say, you're not gonna start acting like the wife to your husband or whatever it is. So you may have many different sides of you, but for each thing you have to channel that role for what you are playing at the moment. So the same with Hashem, with the Sphirot, he's not limited. Just go through this. He's not limited, but he has to limit himself to define himself for you, for each person, or for each creation that he is sustaining. So this woman could be a loving mom, a wise leader. I don't know if you see the screen. But she has a lot more to her than that. Okay, and so now we're going to touch on the Spheros. So we're going to learn the 10 attributes with which Hashem created the world. Many times you've probably heard of them, but we're going to define them now. And what we're going to do is, after we watch this little video that shows what each one is, that describes and explains each one, we'll discuss it a little bit, and then everyone can sit and we're going to do a little a little survey of where you think you find yourself in each of these spheres. Okay, so could everyone see the screen? Okay, and
I see.
What does a painting, a piano, and the primordial pegs of creation have in common? The human eye can detect about 10 million colors, but what we are actually looking at is a tiny group of primary colors that combine in millions of variations of ratios that drench the universe in delightful and awesome visual coloring. A similar principle works for music. Innumerable melodies exist, which can be played on countless forms of instrument. But the wonder we are hearing can be stripped down to just a petite handful of primary musical notes. That's how God created the universe, with just a basic handful of spiritual elements that combine in myriads of ratios to form the splendid symphony of creation. God first created the mystical Sephirot, 10 divine channels through which is infinite light to be condensed, contracted, and then released as individual attributes that could eventually give rise to a diversity of finite creations. Let us make man in our own image, said God. No sooner said than done. Man was created in his creator's image with his own internal set of 10 attributes through which he operates. These 10 spiritual attributes are reflected in the physical human anatomy. Let's go through them one by one. Sephira 1. Chokmah. Chokmah is the initial seed of an idea, the flash of undeveloped inspiration. It enables us to be creative, spiritual, transcendent. Sephira 2. Bina. Bina is the development of ideas. It enables us to be logical, analytical, organized. Sephira 3. Dot. Dot allows us to focus on an idea so that it becomes relevant and personally meaningful. It enables us to be attentive, principled, involved. Sephira 4. Chesed is the power to love, share, and look kindly upon others. It enables us to be generous, optimistic, sociable. Sephira 5. Gavrura is the power of discipline and restraint. It enables us to be calculated, cautious, serious. Sephira 6. Tiferet is the power to empathize and harmonize kindness with strictness based on the needs of others. It enables us to be balanced, empathetic, harmonious. Sephira 7, Netzach, is the power of determination to overcome challenge. It enables us to be persistent, forceful, daring. Sephira 8, Hod, is the power of humility, gratitude, and submitting to a higher cause. It enables us to be thankful, devoted, accommodating. Sephira 9, Yesod, is the power to focus on others and to build genuine relationships. It enables us to be selfless, altruistic, loyal. And last, but not at all least, Sephira 10, Malchut. Malchut has multiple functions. It is the power of speech and action, effective communication and leadership, and to be receptive to others. It enables us to be leading, communicating, achieving. So there you have it, the 10 components of the human self, the internal mechanism upon which all intellect, emotion, and actions run. God used tens of Sephirot to create his universe, and we use our 10 Sephirot to shape our miniature universes.
Okay, so now we're going to go through them, and everyone has on their in their book, or you can try to follow along if you don't have a book, to try and second. Okay. And try, and we're going to sit and try to go through what a little bit more about the spheres. We're going to discuss it a little bit more in depth. Okay. So we all have these 10 powers, would be another way to say the word spherot. And some of us have, and for some of us, they're more, we're more dominant in certain ones and more recessive, or, more weak in others. So we're going to go through each one and explain it a little bit. And you can write little notes if you want to share something, if you're dominant in a certain way, or if you are, feel like you are a little bit more weak in that way, or you could just do this little exercise where you could write next to if you have the book with you, from exercise 3.2 A through, I guess, all you'll see, for all the different zeros. You can write 5, which is very dominant. You feel that, or 1, which is very weak. So anything between 1 and 5, you can sit and grade yourself. So you kind of get an idea of who you are, or what spheroids are dominant in you and what are not. Okay, so here's a little picture of all the in Hebrew what they are. And if anyone has anything to say, and you guys just please put on your mics now, and you can talk and share. So if you have anything to add of what I'm saying, what I'm saying now. So the first sphere, which is Chachma, which means wisdom, is usually that like someone like very creative, very, someone who has like the first spark of like a thought, of an idea, of something. Chachma comes from the word koach ma, which means strength. What is this? Like, hey, you just had this like flash of some type of interesting idea, like a spark of creativity from nowhere. And then the next step would be to develop it. But Chachma is like manifestation, creative potential, or here in exercise 3.2 in the book, it says creative, intuitive, original, spiritual. So if you want, you could put a little number of what you think you are between 1 and 5, 5 being the most of that group, of each of these descriptions, and 1 being the least. If anyone wants to share as we go along, please feel free to share with us what you think about, any of these. Okay, Bina means understanding, and Bina would be like a logical breakdown of creative ideas. Decipher and analyze, or so it's someone who's analytical, logical, organized, studious. Any of these attributes. Actually, the Talmud says that women were giving a higher level of bina, that women have this innate within them. The next one would be das, which means, okay, screen's a little blocked over here. Connection. And das is the connection from the creative idea to actually analyzing it and putting it into something. We create das, which would be decisive, emotionally present, focused, and forging a strong connection.
That's me.
Huh?
I said that's me.
That's you. Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing. And das would be easily translated as knowledge. It's okay. Then those 3 are the intellectual attributes, and now we're going to the emotional attributes. So the first one is chesed. Oh, a second, I didn't follow through on this last one. Mass makes information personal and relevant. Internalization. Okay, and then we have chesed. Chesed means kindness. It could mean kindness, which is like kind of overabundance or overflowing, but also could mean, okay, we'll discuss. Each of these attributes could be used for the good, let's say for others, for God, or they could just be used if someone's like unhealthy, or they could also be used, let's say for yourself. So chesed usually comes across as somebody who is cheerful, extroverted, generous, kind, loving, optimistic, and you could put little numbers, what you think you are, desire to give and share without restraint. Chesed has no restraint. See others in a positive light. And the next attribute is gevura. The next sphere is gevura. Gevura usually means discipline or strength. Someone who is like the opposite of chesed, someone who holds back. So they could be calculated, grounded, realistic, or in the book, the exercise tells cautious, critical, disciplined, frugal, introverted, frugal, introverted, perfectionist, or purist. So depending on how you take the gevura could be used, as I said before, they're very good, in a very good way, or not. And every single one of these attributes could be used in both domains, in a good domain or a and not always such a good domain. Anyone have anything to share, or how are you finding yourselves? Oh, meticulous in how and whom to give. Okay. So someone, let's say, who is, let's say, gives charity with Gevura, they might want to know, they don't just hand out dollars everywhere. They want to know exactly which charity they're giving. They might give charity. They just want to know where they're giving to, what's it going for, is it a good organization, is it the proper place to give charity, as opposed to someone who's chesed, who just likes to give, might just say, oh, well, it's charity, I'm just going to give it. It doesn't make a difference. So it's just different ways and different styles. Tiferes is translated as compassion. It's also sometimes translated as harmony, like the combination of chesed, the combination of kindness, and the combination of gevura, of discipline. And compassion is Tiferes is like the harmony of those two. And Tiferes could mean true beauty results from harmonization and healthy balance of chesed and gevura, which is what I just said. And in the exercise 3.2f, it says balanced, compassionate, empathetic, listening, and sensitive. The next one is netzach, which means victory. And this is determination to win and succeed. And adversity brings out the best. I'll tell you right now that this is probably one of my weakest attributes. And in the book, it says bold, competitive, consistent, determined, gritty, and thrives on adversity. Anyone here getting high numbers in that one? Because I know I'm not.
Well, I find on a lot of these that
What?
I'm mixed. Like, I find on these, like as I go through the list, like I'm mixed.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Very
some
much
you're
mixed.
strong.
Some are high, some are low, you know.
Yes, that could be too, yes. Okay, the next one is called Hod, which here it says it means submission, and it's the inclination to submit to a higher cause, humility, patience, and gratefulness. And in exercise 3.2H, it also describes it as patient, accommodating, devoted, grateful, and humble. It says Aaron, I think, represented Hod. Aaron, the high priest. Okay, and then we have Yesod, which is sometimes it means foundation, and here it says selflessness, and that is connection to others, interested in genuine relationships, and in the exercise book, it says selfless and altruistic. And then Malchut means like royalty, which also here it says it means expression. It's implementing ability to lead. Because Malchut also like means a kingdom, or royalty, as I said before, associated with speech, action, and receptivity. So Malchut in our book says leader, communicator, expressive, receptive, and implementer. Okay, so
It's almost easier if someone else just says, this is what you are.
well,
Self-realization.
Yeah, it's good to go through this. As I said before, I always knew these Hebrew words and maybe the official translation, but never really understood what most of it meant. I always like wondered because they say, right, like between the time of Passover and Shavuos, you sit and work on a different one every day, and I never really understood what it really meant. And people always had it in these like fancy languages or whatever it was. And now I'm like, I feel like here in this class, we put in such a practical terms, it's much easier for us to try to figure this out. So, if anyone wants to share anything that they find about themselves, where they feel dominant or not. Or you know what? We could even take a famous person. Although I don't even know, everyone today is controversial. I know who would everyone agree to decipher. We could take like one famous person and say, oh my goodness, how did they get to their career? How did they get to who they are by we could see about them if they actually what their strong points are. But anyone here want to just give a little raise your hand? If anyone here feel that they in Chachma and wisdom, they feel that they had some strong points. From 3.2a, I think we are, yeah. Anyone want to share or,
I've got some of that because that's what's helped me create my business and in my life. Creative, the intuitive, the original, spiritual. Yeah,
okay.
got some high points.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Yeah. Mhm.
3.2b, how about in the Gavura and the restraint or the, sorry, yeah. Someone looks up here, okay. Yeah, anyone else want to share anything about something that they found that they're very strong in or not strong in, that they feel that aren't so strong in? So,
You know, logical and studious and analytical.
mhm,
Yeah. I have certain aspects of Chakma as I've listed them here.
mhm, thank you.
Spiritual, intuitive. Sometimes I'm creative. A lot of times that's kind of submerged by life, but things are really good and going well, I can be very creative. Like in writing and speech, pictures, drawing.
I didn't know you drew, Hannah Ruth. That's beautiful.
Well, yeah, I look at some old letters that I wrote and the little pictures I put on them, and other times it's just kind of dead to me, but I've had periods when, yeah, they're kind of special.
I
Okay,
have a question.
sure.
So the Vina, so I'm analytical, but I'm not organized. I can be studious. I'm usually sort of logical, but I am not really organized. So it's so interesting. You can have dominance in part of it, but not. So I guess that just averages out into a number.
Yes, and that's because we're all so unique. That's what we were saying before, how like you have, right, 3 base colors, but then you have so many colors on the spectrum. So the same thing here, you have so many personality types and sub-personality types and sub and sub and sub. So that's how we each have our own unique, fingerprint in this world. We're not just all a few basic things. So yes, definitely very interesting how it all pans out, and definitely, yes. Okay, so how do we implement? So now we're gonna do a little bit implementation on all this and all our little personality test we had over here today. So if we take the letter that we read in the beginning, the previous Rebbe's letter on the guidelines of what all the things about your life and your environment and everything, plus your Spheros explanation, plus your different characteristics and talents, whatever it is, your personality, you can implement this into the service of Hashem. You could use all these things together and figure out how to best serve God. Now, obviously, we're not just talking here just about things that serving God. Not everything in life is, let's say, a mitzvah or not a mitzvah. There are definitely a lot of things that people are allowed to do. The Torah lets you do, but not particularly are they, yes, you have to do it, or no, you can't do it. So these are called, divrei reshus, which means things that are allowed. So you can use your talents to develop and influence through these things. So let's say, think of a musician or a therapist, or maybe someone who's an organizer, or someone who's into medicine. All these maybe different inclinations that these people have, they could definitely use it just for the good of the world, or for, just in general. It's nothing, and it could be used to help others. Now, not just that, but even when we do a mitzvah, you can do a mitzvah with your specific personality traits. So let's say you take one mitzvah of the 613 mitzvahs. Let's say you take the mitzvah of, I was thinking of, let's say, the mitzvah of honoring your father and mother, keep it of an aim. And you take that mitzvah, and let's say you're a very organized kind of person, and that's your personality trait. You're very good at, organizing their appointments, figuring out what they need, making sure everything's in order for them, and you're able to do the practical side of taking care of them. let's say then you have a sibling who's a great communicator. They're not very organized, but they could sit and talk with their parents and resonate with them and make them feel good and emotionally be there for them. So each mitzvah, you can do each mitzvah with your specific, personality or trait or talent. There's another thing that the Torah suggests that we do, and that is to be an enthusiast about one particular mitzvah. So you maybe it doesn't have to be something that you're like the most dominant at, but you say, I'm going to make this mitzvah my mitzvah, and you work on it with through your own way, and do whatever you can to try to make that mitzvah your special mitzvah. So that's another way you can take your personality into whatever it is mitzvah that you want to do, and you want to like make your special mitzvah to make it extra special and good. So now, 1 second, let's see. Okay. So now I'm going to summarize text number 5 from our book. The Rebbe summarizes what we just spoke about. I'll read it, and you can read it along if you have your book with you. God gives a unique personality to each person. We all must pursue our mission in accordance with this personality because it comprises our portion in this world. For example, if you are more cerebral, utilize this trait for the study of Torah. Surely you will observe other mitzvahs and commit yourself to the mission shared by every Jew, but you will be extra particular and passionate about Torah study because it comports with your personality. If kindness is your personality, utilize this trait to love and care for others. This includes sharing the rich heritage of Judaism with Jews who never had the opportunity to learn about it. This doesn't mean that you won't study Torah or perform other mitzvahs. It means that you ought to be particularly spirited about your caring for others, given the unique capacity you have for this. If you are a pragmatic person who knows how to get things done, involve yourself in starting an organization and spare no effort to get it off the ground. Alternatively, an existing institution, a school, may have a particular challenge that's inhibiting students' performance. Can you solve it? Perhaps you can alleviate the plight of the poor and homeless. Surely you will also study Torah and develop emotional connection with others, but place extra focus on getting things done. So basically you take the cues and clues of your personality, and it's not for just serving a self-purpose, but also for serving others and for serving Hashem. So now we're going to skip in your book to the appendix, text number 7, page 95, which is also an important point, is don't compare yourself to others because, right, you have your mission, as we discussed before in the other classes, and each person's unique and has a unique talent, and you can't just judge yourself according to what others are doing. So there's a story in the Talmud about a very, very wealthy man named Nakdiman Ben Gurion. He was one of the wealthiest residents of Jerusalem after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, of the second temple. And everyone knew about him. Everyone knew how much money he gave to tzedakah. Now, what happened to him, we're going to read text number 7, is that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, which is a great rabbi of those in that time, he met Nakdiman's daughter, and she was poor. She was a pauper. And she said, what happened to you? What happened to all your father's money? You're coming from a very wealthy, wealthy family. And she said, my father lost his money because he didn't give charity. So this doesn't make any sense because we're going to read now in text number 7 how much charity he gave. Text number 7. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai met the daughter of Nakdiman ben Gurion. In their conversation, she told him that her father had not been charitable. But didn't Nakdiman ben Gurion give charity? Indeed, a Baraita states that people would say about Nakdiman ben Gurion that when he would leave his home to go to the study hall, his attendants would spread fine wool garments underneath him for him to walk on, and he would allow the poor to follow him and take the expensive garments for themselves. Although Nakdiman gave much charity, he did not give enough in proportion to his wealth. As the saying goes, the burden is set according to the strength of the camel. So he gave plenty of charity, but considering how much he had, he didn't give, how much he was able to give. So each person should give. Obviously don't give too much if you don't have the money. But if you do have the money, or someone does have the money, they have to give according to what they have. And the same thing with your talents. Don't waste your potential talents saying, oh, whatever, that's also kind of like wasting. So Hashem wants you to use out your full talent. So like, I was just thinking, let's say, for example, my mother, even when she was older and life in general was very hard, like she was trapped in her body, she always wanted to learn. But actually when I was a kid, I don't remember her ever learning, but as once she, was older, she was always wanted to learn, even when she could barely do anything else or do anything for herself. She at least wanted her mind to be busy with Torah study. So she didn't lose that time and say, oh, I'm old, I'm sick, it's not worth it, let me just take a nap. She always wanted to try and learn. And as we mentioned before, sometimes you have a one of these personality traits could, maybe you're weak in it, you're not strong in it. As I said, but for me, I would say my weakest one would be the one of netzach, of victory. I'm not, not of that kind of a person. Or you have someone who has chachma, who has wisdom that could be very creative, but that might make them moody or not grounded. Or you have someone who is very kind and has the chesed personality, but they can't control, what they give, and they give everything. They never know when to hold back, or they smother, others with their kindness. So we have to know how to deal and how to find the right balance. So we're going to read text number 8a, page 96. This brings us to the story of Hillel and Shammai. They're two famous sages from the Talmud. Hillel was always known as being the chesed person, the kind person, and Shammai was always known as being the gvura, the more disciplined or strict sage. So there's a famous story in the Talmud, text 8a. A man once came before Shammai and said to him, I would like to convert on the condition that you teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot. Shammai chased him away with the builder's measuring tool that was in his hand. Ooh. The prospective convert went to Hillel, who converted him and said, what is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it. So we see Shammai and Hillel had very different ways of treating someone who came to them. So Shammai looked at this man in disgust. Oh, this man's like being imprudent. He just wants to make fun of me and make fun of the Torah. How could he learn the whole Torah on one foot? And Hillel took it in a more positive view and said, oh, this man is earnest and is honest. And he really does want to know the basic of the Torah, but in short. So Hillel treated him with much more respect and with much more kindness. Now, if we look in Pirkei Avos, in text of an Ethics of Our Fathers, text 8b, we're going to read something that Shammai would say, which is very interesting, knowing that Shammai was always the one who was more of a disciplined or stricter nature, how he dealt with this man who wanted to convert. And it says, text 8b, page 97, Shammai would say, make your Torah study a permanent fixture of your life. Say little and do much, and receive every human being with a pleasant countenance. Now, after the story of 8a, you would think, hey, why is Shammai the one telling us to greet every person with a pleasant countenance? But it's because he knew that this was a weak side of him. He wasn't so strong in this. And after the story with Hillel and this man, he realized that he has to change his, try to work on that weak side of him. So yes, we need to focus on our strength. We need to focus on our strong and our dominant personality traits, and not concentrate on what we're lacking, but we still have to do something about what we're lacking. We still have to try to work on it on the side. Our main focus should be on our strengths, but we always should be working to better ourselves a little bit, from our weaker side of us. So how do we stay focused? There is a story. I'm just gonna stop this here. Stop this, everybody. Okay, there's a story of Reb Mendel Futterfass. He was a big chassid who actually is my sister-in-law Esti's great-grandfather, and he lived in Russia, and he helped spread Judaism in communist Russia, and he was eventually arrested and sent to a slave labor camp in Siberia. And none of the other prisoners there had a long beard and a hat and tzitzis and everything. They're all very they were murderers and big thieves and robbers and all kinds of stuff. And he was this little Jew, little Yiddler, amongst these big, burly, prisoners. Anyway, so they weren't always working. Obviously, they had to do their slave labor at times. And sometimes they would have like, a day off or times off or whatever it was, a special holiday, and the prisoners would entertain each other. So this Reb Mendel, that's his great grandfather, said, you know what, I'm going to remember while I'm here to always take a lesson in everything I see and hear, everything in my environment for my life, to see what I can learn from it. So one of the prisoners had been a tightrope walker in his before he got sent to prison. And one time when they were kidding around, they had a day off or whatever it was, they had some extra time off, he said, you guys, I'm going to do a show for you. And he set up a rope up in the air somehow from one tree to the next. And he got up there, he took off his shoes, and he started to walk the tightrope. And everyone's watching and everyone's so excited, and someone started playing music, and this man does his little show. He does the tightrope one way, then turns around, comes the other way, and everyone's so amazed, and the tightrope walker comes down, and he goes to Reb Mendel and says, Rabbi, how did I do? And the rabbi says, very good, tell me how you did it. And he says, I just focus on one thing at the opposite end of the rope. And I don't think about falling. I don't look any other way. I just focus on that one thing, and I'm able to get to the other side of the rope. And so he says, and Rabbi, can you guess what is the hardest part of my little act is? And Reb Mendel says, it's when you turn around. And he says, yes, because when I turn around, I have nothing to focus on at that point. And Reb Mendel took this as a lesson that when we are focused on one goal, when we are focused just at what we want to look at, then there's no danger. Then we can just go and get to what we want to get to. Actually, just was listening to a podcast this morning, a very similar topic too, how like you can write a paper for next year, everything that you want to accomplish this year, as if you already accomplished it and how you got there. And then as you go through the year, because you have that in mind and you feel like you already did it, quote unquote, because you like already wrote what you're going to do, you have a much stronger chance of actually accomplishing that what you want to do. So we're going to end off with text number 6. That basically when people find ways to tap into their strengths and they feel they're giving to society and they're accomplishing, it makes them much happier, which is the idea of our class, Code to Joy. This is a big code to joy. Text number 6, page 92. People who go to this link, okay, are invited to help us test new exercises. So this is from, I guess, a book, and it's telling you to go to a certain place to get this little test. First, they take a depression and happiness test. Next, we randomly assign them to a single exercise. 2 of the exercises, what went well, and the signature strength exercise, below markedly lowered depression 3 months and 6 months later. These 2 exercises also substantially increased happiness through 6 months. The purpose of the signature strengths exercise is to encourage you to own your signature strengths by finding new and more frequent uses for them. After you have completed the test, perform the following exercise. This week, I want you to create a designated time in your schedule when you will exercise one or more of your signature strengths in a new way, either at work, at home, or in leisure. Just make sure you create a clearly defined opportunity to use it. So basically, when you use your signature strengths, they did this study and they have people do this exercise, and they found that people actually become better and become happier through doing what they do best, but practicing it and doing, and using it more and more. So we'll just go through the points of the lesson, and please share and say what you want to say because my throat's getting sore already. Okay. Key points. A number of personal factors point us towards our unique mission in life: our parents, our place of birth, the era of our birth, our education, the environment in which we grew up, our talents, our emotional makeup, our character and inclinations, and notable experiences of our childhood and adolescence. These factors form the book of our life, a book that requires study to learn from it how to behave, both in interpersonal relationships and our relationship with God. 3, Jewish mysticism teaches that God created the world through 10 attributes. Every human soul is a microcosm of these 10 attributes. But within each soul, 1 or 2 of these attributes are dominant, which gives us our personality. This too should guide us toward our mission in life. Number 4, upon analyzing the different factors of our lives, we are empowered to use them as guides for how we make life's choices. This includes tapping into our background and personality to inform how we engage in various good deeds and which projects will become something into which we will pour extra investment. And number 5, when people find more ways to tap into and utilize their personality strengths, they substantially increase in their happiness. It's so good to see everyone on the screen. It's much easier than just only seeing a few people at a time. So, so what do you have to say? It's nice to see you all, by the way.
It's a lot to think about. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Very-
I have to
it's
write
very-
things down. I'll have to ask my kids, what do they think about my strengths? And what are my weaknesses that I have to improve on?
Yeah. If you ask your kids, you're gonna get a whole list of things. So
And I'll ask my husband.
ask a
I'm sure I'll
spiritual
get another
mentor.
list.
Ask someone who believes in you.
I'll make my own and then I'll ask them
Yeah.
for a list and one for my husband. And
Yeah.
then, between all of it, I'll see how it intersects.
Hi,
I
Suri,
Hi,
I love
everyone.
this class.
It was
I love
beautiful.
this class.
Thank you.
But you have to work on it. You know, it's like, okay, when we hang up, it's like bye and we all go about our day. But it's something to work on, even like 10 minutes a day, like tomorrow morning, 10 minutes, the next day, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
these classes are, you know, you have to follow through because all this means nothing if you don't follow through on this. So this was an outstanding class. Thank you so much. Great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
gonna
Yes.
change my life.
The road there is the road traveled is that's what it is. It's not just, you don't just wake up and be like this one day. It's every day working on it until you find yourself in a different place than you were. Totally.
Right. It's a lot to think on and reflect, to make things better for yourself, for other people, for this
Mhm.
year.
Yeah, and then I find, okay, so now I'm older, so I have to look at it from where I am now because I've changed over the years. But anecdotally, 2 things came out my first year in South Central. I had an extremely difficult class, and the things that really I felt that were very important that were needed for that class at that time was my kindness and my intellectual ability to dig down and see what was going on, and which had a good effect on the kids.
Oh, can I just interject one more other thing? Oh,
Sure.
what Nancy, Ruth was saying is that the older we get, we're so set in our ways and it's so hard to change and recognize, you know what, these are my flaws. Maybe I can work on it, more, but it's harder when you get older.
Oh, I was saying, actually, I've just changed. This is true what you're saying, but what I was saying was that my attributes are different and in different qualities than when I was younger.
And also, someone told me something really cute. Like they said, let's say you don't feel like you have to change, take a 90 degree or 180. If you even just move 5% different than how you were before, and you keep going, that little incline, eventually makes such a huge difference, right? If you go 5% off a straight line, however far down the line, you're going to be way above than where you were if you didn't make that little 5% adjustment. So even if, and then
Even something.
right, and then from many people on here who maybe are older, say, oh, I done so much, it's harder, or this or that. So I saw with my mother, she never gave up. She was always working on herself and was always changing. And I was just thinking, like Brenda says, how much she, let's say, connects to my mother. She knows my mother, but she only knew my mother in the last, let's say, year of her life, when my mother was already in a nursing home, and and compared to what she used to be, you would say, oh, she's, quote unquote, how much could she have done then, or how much could she influence them? And to be able to influence people even at that stage in life where she was, like that's an amazing thing. And if we could all, I don't know, I feel like if you could aspire to be like that and like never give up and never think, oh, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm over the hill. Because already, like, already people make me feel sometimes like, I'm over the hill. I'm like, oh, you're already the old.
Sorry,
old
Hashem.
I know, but the old guard, the new young 20s people come in, they feel like they know everything, right? But right, it does make a difference what age you are. You could still, you could still change, work on yourself, and make it,
Inspire.
inspire.
Yeah,
You know what they say? When you're a child, your parents are stupid, but as you get older, they get smarter.
oh, yeah.
Suri, could you share with us the article that you were showed with the different age groups? It looked very interesting.
Yeah, yes, I could. I have the link for that. And if you want the link for the artist for Paul Muchnick one, I could send that one too. I'll email it to you guys.
That
Oh,
was
good.
on
Yeah,
Thank you.
I like both, yes.
It was beautiful.
It was fantastic. Thank you,
Thank
Suri.
all
Have
for
a
coming.
great day, everyone. It's so good to see all of
Eileen, I have to
you.
see you.
Bye, everybody. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank
Some of
you,
these
Sari.
like this. I wish we could all have a class soon in person. God willing.
Yeah.
great.